Hey guys, my name is Adam, and today I have another Rome Total War multiplayer battle replay for you today. I am actually going to be showing you a 3v3, which is something I don't get to play very often, but I had two friends that wanted to play Rome with me, so I figured why not? This is definitely a very fun experience when you get to have battles all over the field. It is a little tough to commentate over because of all these varying fronts for battles, but I will do my best to show you all of the action. Anyway, I am playing as the Macedonians, and then my allies are Xenosimilus and Hank Hill, which is a name that got us a lot of laughs last night, so that's always nice. I had a good time last night playing Rome. But anyway, taking a look at my build, I have 6 sets of Royal Pikemen with gold upgrades on them. This is a very, very strong infantry line. This is 15k CWB. It was actually 45k, but it gets split up, so 15k per army. But we had to follow CWB rules, every single one of us, and it actually happened this time. In all the other games I've shown you, there has been one person to break CWB, but I don't think that happened in this game, which I'm really happy about. But anyway, 6 sets of Royal Pikemen. Very, very strong lineup here. Generally, when you're playing at 15k or higher, you definitely want to bring a lot of Royal Pikemen. You want to upgrade these guys a lot, because your earlier forms, like Phalanx Pikemen, are not very good. And then if you go even further back, you have Levy Pikemen, which, no. You don't want to do that anymore. It's really just not worth it. The money, the morale of those guys is horrible, so you just want to avoid them entirely. Then I have 3 sets of archers, and I actually put some upgrades on them this time around. I have silver bronze upgrades. This is purely to keep them a little more sustainable. Because of my really strong infantry line and my really strong cavalry line, I wanted to keep my archers a little bit more sustainable. I don't have as many, so I wanted to give them some upgrades to keep them in the fight a little longer, increase their morale, so on and so forth, make them a little bit more deadly. Especially because I'm versing a Roman, which is always dangerous. Then I have 5 sets of companion cavalry with, it looks like, gold-silver upgrades. So I couldn't afford the gold that I usually put into them, but they are still very powerful. A very, very powerful cav force, so I'm definitely happy I have this. And then if we take a look at the army directly across from me, he went for a very different Roman army. Typically, you'll see, for the standard Roman army, urban cohorts, Praetorian cavalry, archers. That is the typical build. My opponent went crazy, and I think he brought pretty much every unit that Rome can handle. He has a set of light auxilia up front here, which is a missile unit. They throw spears, so definitely a powerful and deadly unit. Pretty much every Roman unit can throw spears. If you take a look at any of their infantry, like urban cohorts, legionary cohorts, auxilia, light auxilia, they can all throw spears. Definitely powerful. So light auxilia at the front, which is definitely a missile unit that can cause some substantial damage. And then an auxilia unit back here. I'm pretty sure he only brought one of these. Then he has Hastati, and I think he has a couple of them. I might be wrong, though. Actually, no. No, it does not look like it. So he has 1 set of Hastati, then he has a set of urban cohorts back here, but he has more of those. Let's see here. There's 2, 3, and I think that's it. So 3 sets of urban cohorts. Keep in mind that this guy went for a numbers build. He is not going for upgrades here very much. I think right here, yeah, as you can tell, the auxilia have a +1 attack, so bronze attack. Very, very, very weak upgrading system here, but that's perfectly fine. He definitely has a lot more men than me. It's pretty obvious. Then he has, let's see, Legionary First Cohort. So that's 2, 3, looks like 3 sets of Legionary First Cohort, 2 sets of Triarii. You don't see these guys very often, because typically urban cohorts, legionary cohorts, etc., they can handle cavalry by themselves. They're pretty good at doing that, but he actually brought some spearmen, which I can only assume is to deal with the enemy cavalry, and that's actually a good idea considering the potent cav force I brought. He actually has much less cav than me, and they are not upgraded as much, so definitely something to keep in mind. And I believe that's it. He brought a couple Principes here. There's 1, and I think he brought 1 more, but I really can't be certain. He has these guys spread out all over the place, in no particular order from what I can tell, but it looks like only 1. Then he has a set of peasants here. This is probably going to be used to absorb my bow fire. That's what I would have used them for, at least. And then he has a Roman general here, which he did not put his general in. I guess he just wanted to have a more powerful cav component. He may have just had the money for this. I don't really know. Then a Praetorian cavalry, which is the best cavalry that Rome offers, except he has only 1 upgrade on them, and it looks like defense, although I can't be certain. So bronze defense, I'm going to say. Then he has a set of cavalry auxilia, which is spear-throwing cavalry. And 2 more sets of cavalry over here, which is 2 more Roman generals. Actually, a Roman general and a Roman armor general. So he stepped up to the plate for this one, and his armor general actually is his general for the army. So that's actually not a bad army. It's certainly not standard, but you can make a lot work with a numbers game. You can do a lot with numbers. Upgrades are usually what you see, but it certainly is not the only way to win with an army. Now, taking a look at Xenosimulus' army, which is my Bruttii ally, he has 3 sets of Roman archers, which is pretty powerful. He also put gold upgrades on these guys. I'm not quite sure if that's worth it in the long run. If you put gold, then you generally want to have them charge into melee and cause their own hand-to-hand combat damage, because they actually do get a substantial benefit from gold, but it's not very often that you see archers charge into melee, so I'm not sure if this is completely worth it, but it definitely gives them a little bit more impact. Then he has 5 sets of urban cohorts with gold upgrades. Very, very powerful, very deadly, and it's pretty standard to see this with Rome. And then he has 2 sets of Hastati with silver upgrades. I have to imagine this is just to get more pillow thrown at the same time, cause a lot more damage, which is always quite nice. Then 2 sets of Praetorian cavalry with gold upgrades. So he does not have much cavalry, but the cavalry he does have is very powerful. You want to get outflanking charges with these guys, because they can cause a lot of damage. Then he has 1 Roman armored general here with gold upgrades, and that is where his general is. He is right there, and I'm sure he is ready for battle as well. Then taking a look all the way on the right-hand flank, we have the Scipii general, which is Hank Hill. Where is his general, actually? He actually put his general in a Praetorian cohort unit, which is certainly not something you see very often. But there you go. There's his general right there. He has 6 sets of Praetorian cohorts. No, actually, it's Praetorian cohort, and then he has Legionary cohorts here. So, looks like 5 sets of Legionary cohort. I hope I'm getting that right, but it looks like it. And they have gold upgrades on them. So he didn't go with the standard urban cohorts, but he also has a lot more bows. He has more cavalry, so I guess it's understandable. And of course, it's still the same amount of pilla, so you can't really go wrong with that. Then he has 5 sets of Roman archers with, it looks like, silver bronze upgrades, which is something I definitely recommend. That's actually just enough upgrades to make your archers as effective as possible. You don't really need gold, but it certainly does help. And he also doesn't need that many upgrades on them because he has the numbers game. And quite frankly, if you have the archers number game, you're probably going to win, because if you bring even 1 extra unit of archers, you're already 80 men up on the enemy archers. So it's something to keep in mind. You don't really need huge amounts of upgrades on archers, and generally you just want the numbers game. But the upgrades do have them be a little bit more sustainable, allow them to stay in the fight a little longer, maybe increase their morale, so it's definitely something to keep in mind. Then 4 sets of Legionary cavalry with gold upgrades. And that is actually a pretty good cav force, although it's not the best that Rome has. If you want to go for really strong cavalry, then you want to go for a Praetorian, but I'm sure he didn't have the money with all of these archers and Legionary cohorts that he brought, so it's perfectly understandable that he wanted to go for more numbers when it came to cavalry. But you don't really want to engage your opponent's cavalry with Legionary cav. What you want to do is do a lot more outflanking charges, and we'll see exactly what happens in this game. Taking a quick look at these opposing armies, the Armenian player went for a very interesting build. He actually has a lot of archers hidden away. So I believe he has 6 sets of archers hidden away in this forest. Definitely very powerful. Then he has a set of horse archers, actually 2 of them, which is perfectly fine. 2 is the max allowed in CWB, and he kept to that. And I believe these guys are silver gold, it looks like, or gold silver, either way. Very powerful. And then he brought cataphracts, which is probably the best cavalry in the game. The only faction that can beat cataphracts easily is the Scythians, so keep that in mind. The headhunting maidens, I believe is what they're called, they can tear through armored cavalry. So if you're having a lot of trouble with Seleucids or Armenians that bring cataphracts, then you want to go Scythians. It's a very, very good idea indeed. Taking a look at the Julii opponent over here, keep in mind that I am also versing a Julii opponent, so don't get them confused. We have Colonel Sanders. He brought 2 sets of Roman archers with, it looks like 1 upgrade. No, it's actually silver bronze, so very good upgrade system there. 2 sets of peasants. I honestly think that bringing 2 sets of peasants is a bit much. If you really need peasants, you can bring 1, and then use the rest of your money on upgrades. You'd be surprised how a couple of upgrades can really improve your game. Then he has a set of Town Watch, which I have to imagine is for absorbing fire. So the problem I have with Colonel Sanders' army, he has so many men devoted to soaking up fire. I feel like he put too much money into that, and it's taking away from his ability to beat back his opponent. I think that's the problem with this build, but he also has 2 sets of Triarii. I have to imagine that's for fighting off enemy cavalry. Then he has, let's see here, it looks like 6 sets of urban cohorts with silver bronze upgrades. So that's what I'm talking about. When you bring so many units like Triarii, Town Watch, Peasants to soak up enemy fire, you have to keep in mind that you're taking away from the upgrades on your main force. And although they're urban cohorts, when you look at Hank Hill's army over here, where he has gold legionaries, it's very possible for the legionary cohort to win that engagement. Now, unfortunately for the Scipii over there, the Julii opponent he has, Colonel Sanders, has a lot more cavalry. And it looks like it is 6 sets of Praetorian Cav. I have to imagine that there's very little upgrades on them, and it looks like that is the case. Only bronze. But it's Praetorian Cavalry. They're very powerful, much more powerful than the legionary cavalry that the Scipii actually brought. So always something to keep in mind. But with that done, finally, we can get into the actual confrontation here. So, like I said at the very beginning, this is not a standard build for the Julii opponent that I'm facing, Tiger General. Tiger General is really bringing something a little off the wall. That's not bad, certainly not bad, but he needs to implement this really well in order for it to work. Also, keep in mind that we are fighting for control of this very large hill. I mean, if you look at this, the elevation level is quite substantial, and fighting downhill on Rome is huge. You definitely want to be doing that. It's definitely super important. But for the most part, our engagement over here is going to be a skirmish. Honestly, I think what he should have done was engage me quickly, because he doesn't really have a good bow force. I have much more bows, and I was not expecting that at all, to be quite honest with you. Taking a look at the Armenian harassment here, though, he is using his horse archers on either side, and I believe he's in the circle formation. Yeah. I don't actually remember what this is called, but he wants to use these guys to harass as much as possible. It's very smart of him to use them on the flank, and it looks like he's shooting at the enemy archers right now. Xenosimulus' archers are definitely taking a beating, so always something to keep in mind. Let's see exactly where these guys are firing. Looks like it's over here. Yeah, it's definitely over here. So, these Roman archers are getting shot from multiple directions, and I mean, if you look at all of these Armenian archers, there's definitely a problem going on here. There's no way for the Bruttii Romans to win an archer fight like this, and then he has these cataphracts, which are ridiculously powerful, like super powerful. Always something to keep in mind. Looks like there's a little bit of mismicro here, and he charges these guys way too far forward, but that's actually fine. No big deal at all. Over on my front, I am going to be using fire arrows a lot to kind of start harassment, and because he has units with lower defense, I'll say, lower armor, I decide that I guess I would just take some shots at them. I don't exactly know how many guys I'll kill, but as you can tell, I've burned a couple of them to the ground, which is quite nice, but now that they have their shields up, I'm not going to do too much damage, and I believe I'm going to start firing at these cavalry auxilia very soon. I even charge a royal pikeman up here to try and get them, but they're going to run away. I opted for fire arrows mainly because I wanted to lower their morale. I figured that this guy would charge really quickly because he was clearly going to lose the archer fight, but he actually didn't, and that's quite surprising, but nonetheless, I guess that works out. Way back over here, the harassment has continued, and as you can tell, these guys that were purely meant to absorb fire certainly have done that, but in doing so, they have actually routed, so I just don't really get the point of this. This is a lot of money. I have to imagine this is about 500 denarii, so I don't think that's worth it. I really don't. It's okay to bring like one peasant unit to absorb fire, but when you get into that amount, I think that's a bit much. Anyway, these horse archers are right on the Bruttii flank, causing a lot of damage here. I think what Xenosimulus should have been doing right now is put his guys into testudo formation, because as you can tell, it looks like those horse archers are actually targeting his cavalry. They haven't actually gotten any kills yet, which is quite odd, but certainly a danger. Meanwhile, the Julii opponent over here, Colonel Sanders, has amassed his cavalry, a very powerful cav force, over on the Scipii flank. and in response, it looks like Hank Hill is going to be moving all of his troops to counter this, or at least most of them. Now, I can already see the problem here is that he has a couple archer units that are isolated. It just tends to be the case because he has to keep this flank secure, but he's leaving some archers out here in a bit of danger. This is definitely a danger zone right here. The question is, will his opponent actually see this and do something about it? That is definitely another story. Back up on my front, I have managed to catch these cavalry auxilia, and I'm actually starting to rout them. He also charged that Roman general that was just sitting over here, and now he charges his general unit, his Roman armored general, into 2 sets of pretty much full companion cavalry. That's not a good idea. I even have more cavalry in reserve, and he's charging all of his cavalry now. He's going for an all-in on this side, and that's definitely dangerous. That's not something I would recommend, because now I just got a rear charge on his general. Now comes the Praetorian cavalry at the flank, but I'm going to get another rear charge. And this is the benefit to keeping some guys in reserve. You can always do outflanking maneuvers. There goes his general, though. And it looks like he is going to get away, from what I can tell. But there we go. Mash rout of all of the cavalry, which is certainly not good for my opponent. Back over here, the harassment has continued, and I believe he is actually shooting at his general now. Yeah, that's definitely the case, so this is always dangerous. In this particular situation, I would have moved my general back, but in comes the cataphracts, and yes, these 2 archer units that were isolated actually got charged down. Kind of sad. Would have been always nice to keep those guys alive. Here's a huge cavalry fight over here. Sorry for missing a bit of that, but it looks like the Scipii cavalry has won with the support of the legionary cohorts. Definitely very good. In come the cataphracts, though. Cataphracts are much different than Praetorian cavalry. Cataphracts are dangerous as hell. They are the most armored cavalry in the game, and they can be extraordinarily dangerous, especially when they pull out their maces, and look what they have done. These guys can tear through Romans very quickly. Those maces are deadly as hell. And it's not just that, but the morale of legionary cavalry going against cataphracts is really bad, and now we're starting to see some routing, which always sucks. But there goes the Scipii cavalry. Now we have legionary cohorts in the mix. It looks like these cataphracts are very concerned with getting all of the legionary cavalry gone before they start focusing on the infantry. I actually think this was somewhat of a bad move. What the cataphracts really should be doing is going head-to-head with the Romans, especially as the Julii are starting to engage, as Colonel Sanders engages. I think the cataphracts really could have mash routed this group. And you need to keep in mind that these legionary cohorts do not want to fight right now. They have just gone through a little bit of a fight with cataphracts. They're not really in the mood. Lucky for them, though, they're actually going against the first line of Triarii. Personally, I don't see why he sent Triarii in first. I don't think it's a good idea, because there we go. They're actually routing, and keep in mind that the legionaries just got done fighting with cataphracts and are slightly injured. They don't really want to fight right now. Oh well, I mean, they're Triarii. What can you do? But now they have to verse some urban cohorts, so it's definitely going to be a different story here. Meanwhile, over here, the Bruttii Romans, which is Xenosimilus, are going to engage the Armenians. A lot of fire arrows going in over there. I'm going to try and quickly pan up here, but I have engaged my Roman opponent, and I'm causing quite a bit of damage. I'm mainly just engaging with my phalanx right now. I decided to split into 2 different groups, one to handle the right flank, one to handle the left flank, and that's working out pretty well. The savior of this battle is going to be my cavalry with all the rear charges, because I've gotten rid of all of his cavalry. There's nothing he can do to outflank me. Meanwhile, I have all the mobility in the world, and that's all I need. Meanwhile, over here, Xenosimilus is in quite a dangerous situation. His urban cohorts are completely surrounded by cataphracts. This is dangerous. He's right in the middle of Armenian legionnaires and cataphracts. That is super dangerous, because unfortunately, the Roman units cannot really handle cataphracts. It's way too dangerous. But even there, the Bruttii general actually died, so now we're going to see a mash rout of the Bruttii. That really sucks, but the outflanking was just too good. They were completely surrounded. There was no way to get out of that. And over here, it's kind of a different story. Although the Scipii general has just routed, they are still fighting really well. It's definitely not the end of the world, but now we're starting to see the outflank, and we're starting to see the Armenians wrap up on them. So that means that the Skippy Eye cannot really do anything here. I think that the best thing that my Roman allies could have done here was group together and take them on in a group force. Just make a huge Roman blob and then engage. That would have made the Cataphracts less effective. I feel like it would have made the archers less effective. And the pillow wouldn't even be as effective because they would have grouped together and it would have been harder to engage that kind of a formation. So I think that grouping together was the answer here, but there's just too many Julii Romans and Armenians here. There's no way that Hank Hill can actually pull this one out. So that's going to be it. There's the route. The only thing left is this cavalry, which is going to route now. But that is it. Meanwhile, over on the hill, I've actually done pretty well. I've managed to beat back all of these Romans. I got into a nice little outflanking maneuver here. I have my cavalry running around. I want to make sure that none of the routing units come back. And that's working out decently. I mean, as you can tell, this light auxilia actually did come back. They have a lot of men, so they want to stay and fight. Which isn't a very good idea, because I have a lot of my army still alive. The only thing I'm really missing out on is my archers, but they're still around here and there. As you can tell, they are still around, but injured. It's pretty much what I expected, because I actually had them take the brunt of the Pilla as I charged in, and there was a lot of Pilla. They had light auxilia, they had Principes, they had Astati, they had the numbers game, and they all threw Pilla. So, not very good, very dangerous. But here we go. My cavalry can pretty much rout any of the Roman units that are still around. So that's going to be the end of this battle. I'm going to cut down all of these urban cohorts here as well. You also need to keep in mind that Tiger General never really put any upgrades in these guys either, so my gold Royal Pikemen are just going to town. They're able to just quickly mop them up. I will say that this was not a standard army, so it's very possible that he just wanted to try something different. The engagement that he had was not to his liking. What you need to do when you have the numbers game is do a lot more outflanking. I actually did more outflanking than him, which is really bad. I mean, these guys are Hastati, Principes, very low-tier Roman units, and he never really got the outflanking that he needed. So that wasn't going to work out. It just wasn't. There was no way for him to really stop me in that situation. But now we're in an interesting situation. It is going to be 2 versus 1. It's just me versus the Armenians and the Julii Romans. And I'm a little bit worried. There's still a lot of Armenians left. The Armenian is the main player that I am worried about. Although there are some Romans here, it's mostly bows. I mean, let's face facts here. He has a couple injured urban cohorts, but the majority of this is bows. And I'm sure they're very close to being out of ammo. So I'm not really worried. The main thing I'm worried about, though, is all of these Armenians, especially the Cataphracts, because they can chew through my army really easily. Although, the benefit to me is that I am a Phalanx faction, and if he makes a micro mistake, these Cav can be gone in an instant. So, we'll have to see exactly what happens. Alright, but now I'm essentially telling my opponents to come over and try and kill me. I'm on a hill. That's very obvious. And I know that people would call this hill camping. But we need to take a look at the fact that this is 2 versus 1. I'm not going to walk into the open field and fight these guys. It's not going to happen. They would have gladly taken a hill advantage if they could have gotten one. But it was just luck of the draw. I ended up fighting on this side where there was a huge hill. I won my fights and I'm taking control of the hill. I'm going to wait for my opponents. I'm pretty much reading trivia questions to my friends at this point, seeing exactly when they'll attack me. I'm happy to sit here for as long as possible. I really don't care. They can take their merry sweet time, but I am not going to be getting off this hill. I don't see the benefit in fighting down there when it's a 2 versus 1 situation. They could have wrapped me up really quickly. And I mean very quickly. Alright. So I am just going to wait on this hill. There's no purpose in me going down there. There really is not. I'm actually going to come back to you guys when the engagement begins. But until then, it's going to be sitting up here. So I figured that I would spare you guys that, and I'll see you in a short while. And I am back. So, as you can tell, my opponents have actually split their armies up. This is probably the worst decision they could have made. Quite frankly, if they had grouped together and attacked me in somewhat of a blob sense, just kind of overpower my smaller forces, they probably could have done a lot more damage here. The problem is that the Roman player is actually really injured. His cavalry is very minuscule, and as you can tell, I have split off the majority of my cavalry to chase this one down, which actually works out really well for me. He's actually slower than I am. I'm not exactly sure why that is. I guess the Praetorian cavalry is actually just slower than companion cavalry. I'm not sure why I caught him there, but there you can see that he did rout, and none of his troops actually were able to do a single thing about it. They're going to toss some pillar at me, but I instantly go into loose formation, so it's going to cause very minor casualties. And here I actually do charge right into him. I think that was a micro mistake. I don't think I meant to do that, but it wasn't actually in the end of the world, because I don't really lose that many troops. The Pilla is going to cause the rout, though, because it destroyed the majority of the troops. Now keep in mind, that was not all of my cavalry. I still have a completely fresh unit of companion cavalry that can do great outflanking charges. In the meantime, though, the Armenian archers still have a lot of ammo. Way more ammo than I actually suspected, because if you remember, the cataphracts and the phalanx formation was actually able to break Xenosimulus' formation quicker than I would have thought. But anyway, here he's going to launch some fire arrows directly into my side. Luckily, it's the side where I have shield, so it's not going to cause too much damage. As you can tell, I just lost like 4 people or so, maybe 5, but it's really not the end of the world. And I'm a little worried about cataphracts charging into my side, so I'm moving in to intercept. And in the meantime, I have routed all of the Julii Romans. Colonel Sanders' army just could not handle the pressure, and I really didn't expect anything more from that. Now I have this completely fresh set of companion cavalry, and I see this huge amount of cataphracts, so I'm going to actually get the charge on them. I figured that I don't want them to charge me, because that will cause a lot more damage. I'm going to charge them, and then I'm going to use these royal pikemen to support. Now the problem is that cataphracts cause a ridiculous amount of damage. You can tell they have pulled out their maces, and they're causing ridiculous damage. Luckily, my companion cavalry has good morale. That's always really nice to have. Now, my companion cavalry has been driven down to 6 men, but I have routed his horse archers, which he also charged into melee. I presume they were out of ammo. But that leaves just the cataphracts. And although there's a lot of them still, I have greatly lowered their numbers. It's always nice to keep in mind. Anyway, the Armenians have moved forward here, and they do have their phalanx formation set up. They still have 1 set of these Armenian legionnaires, but he has 4 sets of heavy spearmen as well. So, quite a potent army there. Nothing too shocking. I don't think I actually mentioned these guys when I was going over the build, because they were hidden in the trees, but there you go. Anyway, these cataphracts are going to charge into my archers. They actually didn't have any ammo, so I did not care about them. That's perfectly fine. But it did serve as a good luring tactic, because now I can charge my royal pikemen over in that general direction, scare them off a little bit, and my archers actually didn't even rout, which is pretty shocking. Now I have this little bit of cavalry still remaining. Over here you can see that the heavy spearmen are moving up on my formation. Now, quite frankly, heavy spearmen are not in any way capable of defeating royal pikemen in a straight-up engagement. I also have more pikemen than he does, so that gives me a great opportunity to overpower them. In the meantime, I believe I mismicroed a little bit here. I charged in just a tad bit late, and it's actually going to cause an insta-rout of one of my companion cav. That's the one that was charged, but I'm also charging in this royal pikeman unit. And I have another royal pikeman coming in from the other side. So I'm just trying to trap these guys to the best of my ability. And over here, I'm starting to fight the Armenian legionnaires, which is working pretty well. They can't actually get past my phalanx. Over here, the cataphracts are going to charge in, but I'm going to drop my phalanx as well. I decided to turn around very quickly. I could have done it quicker. I definitely could have. It was a little bit of a micro mistake. This is still a dangerous situation, though, because I'm stuck in the middle of legionnaires and cataphracts. And sadly, my royal pikeman does rout. But I'm using my little bits of cavalry to still harass, and then I have all of my other pikemen moving forward as well. As you can tell, I have a lot of pikemen left. Sadly, for the Armenian player, the Julii player that I was versing was unable to really take me down, so at this point I have a lot of pikemen. And the only thing I was really lacking on was bows and cavalry, but at the same time so was he, so it always is nice. But anyway, here come the cataphracts. They're going to try to charge straight through into the backs of these guys, and they succeed slightly, but I think this was a little bit premature. Although the Armenian legionnaires and heavy spearmen were having a difficult time, they ended up charging right into a phalanx formation practically, and a couple of them got caught. You can see that I'm starting some routing going on in all these other places. There go the heavy spearmen, and all that's left right here is the Armenian legionnaires. We have a heavy spear unit there. There's another rout, and here's another rout. So all they have left is a couple of heavy spearmen units and a very, very weak Armenian legionnaire. Then they have these cataphracts, which can be dangerous, but I'm chasing them all around the map in a way that makes them really ineffective. As you can tell, a couple of Colonel Sanders' troops have actually come back from routing, but it's very minuscule. These guys will rout very quickly. Also over here you can see my Royal Pikemen are completely destroying these Heavy Spearmen. And that's the way things should be, really. Heavy Spearmen cannot go against Royal Pikemen. Just, it won't happen. Anyway, these urban cohorts actually rout before any of my troops actually get to them, so that's helpful. Don't really have much threat coming from that direction. The only thing really left is cataphracts and... let's see, what else do they even have on the field? That's about it, really. There's a bunch of archers over there and one heavy spearman unit left, and it looks like a horse archer unit as well, but I'm pretty sure they've used all their ammo. Here's my archer unit. They just got run down. I wasn't really too worried about this. My archers have very little ammo left by the end of all of this battle, so it wasn't a big deal for them to rout here. If anything, he's just trying to get up his kill pool on the cataphracts, which is fine, but it just won't help him in the long run. I didn't expect my archers to make a very significant difference by the end of it. Alright, so, taking a look here, I ended up charging my Royal Pikeman unit, just one of them, straight forward. I don't remember if this was a micro mistake or if I actually meant to do this, but just by charging forward, I was able to rout the Heavy Spearman unit, and now I'm moving up with the rest of my army, seeing that that was really successful. Considering there's only a couple archer units left, very, very weak in cataphracts, I know that I have this battle just completely in my control. And that's all I really needed to do. This is exactly what I needed to do. I needed to chase down all of these units, and luckily my opponent was a good sport about all of this. Here comes a Heavy Spearman unit on my flank. I'm trying to catch these cataphracts. They're being very annoying. I'm trying to make sure that I can rout them in any way, shape, or form. And I believe the Armenian general is actually still alive, so that's something to keep in mind. Let's actually take a look. He might not be, but I think that's him, actually. So the Armenian general is still alive, so that definitely helps. Armenians will rout very quickly without a general. Over here, I'm assuming that he's going to go for an all-out charge on this Royal Pikeman unit. That's actually a really good idea. In theory, but I have so much of my army ready to support at the same time, and as you can tell, here come the cataphracts, but it just won't work. He can't get me in a way that will be a surprise. Although he does have these horse archers all in different areas, the cataphracts are trying to come in from this direction. It doesn't matter, really, because if any of them charge, it won't rout my Royal Pikemen, and then I can just surround them and kill them off, so that's pretty much going to be the end of it. And there we go. My opponent actually ended up conceding defeat, which is really nice of him. I'm happy that he did that because usually people will just leave instead of conceding defeat, which is just annoying at the end of the day. So I hope you guys enjoyed that game. It was definitely a lot of fun for me to play. It's not often I get to play in 3v3 matchups, but if you look at my kills, I got a ridiculous amount. And that's only because I was able to fight off pretty much all the enemy armies instead of just one. I ended up killing a lot of units from the Tiger General Army because he fielded 1,500, which is a ridiculous amount for a Roman army. Although Colonel Sanders seemed to have fielded about the same, so I'm not really sure the deal with that. But then Titan's Gunshi over there, the Armenian player, actually did get a lot of kills as well at 1,700. So definitely a fun game, and I'm happy I can play some 3v3s. Let me know if you guys want to see more 3v3 matchups like this on Rome, and I will be sure to bring them to you. Anyways, I will see you guys in future videos.